I'm always surprised when I see people talking about covered calls and they don't seem to quite grasp how powerful the strategy can actually be when applied properly. But today I'm going to try to clear that up, and we're going to talk about 5 reasons why you need to be selling covered calls if you want to generate the best returns possible. My name is Charlie, and on this channel I make videos about wealth building and achieving financial freedom so that you can free up your time to focus on the things that you truly care about. So we'll start with the primary reason that I like to sell covered calls, and that is that you can use them to bring in guaranteed income every single week, regardless of what happens with the stock market. When compared to simply buying and holding stocks, it's a much more effective strategy for generating income and accelerating your returns. To demonstrate this, let's look at the S&P 500 Index Fund, SPY, which is generally pretty representative of the market as a whole. So let's say we bought here right at the beginning of 2017 when SPY was at about $227 per share. If we held until the end of 2019, then at that point it's worth $322 per share, or about a 42% return. But then all of a sudden, within the next 3 months, we're right back to where we started. And we haven't been using our stocks to bring in income along the way, so we have absolutely no profit despite holding those stocks for over 3 years. But let's assume you didn't panic and sell when the price was dropping, so the stock recovered and we're back to about $350 per share, or about a 54% return over those almost 4 years that you've owned the stock. So not too bad, right? That's at least until you compare it to what you could have brought in selling covered calls, which on average should be about 3 to 5% per month, or about a 400 to 950% return over the course of that same time period. That's about a 10 times higher return over that period just by writing covered calls on the same stocks that you would have otherwise just been holding. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you buy the SPY index fund for covered call writing. You can if you want to be extra conservative at the expense of bringing in lower premiums, but in this case, I'm really just using this index fund as an example to represent the market as a whole. Now, the next reason that you need to be selling covered calls is that they add some safety to your portfolio because it reduces the cost basis on your shares. Let's say, for example, that you buy stock XYZ at $100 per share, then sell a covered call 1 week out for a premium of $2. Once you sell that call, your cost basis on those shares now becomes $98 per share rather than $100. Or in other words, you can sell that stock for any price over $98 and still be profitable overall. And the more calls you sell on those shares, the more you reduce your cost basis. So say if you bring in $10 of premium over the next 5 weeks, you've reduced your cost basis on those shares all the way down to $90 per share. Now, if the stock drops a few dollars, you can still sell and walk away with a profit, or you could even start selling covered calls at a slightly lower strike price to bring in bigger premiums. On the other hand, if you just buy and hold a stock, you're not using it to generate any income, so if it drops anywhere below the price you bought it for, you'd either have to sell at a loss or just hold on to it and hope it goes back up again. Now, the third reason why you need to be selling covered calls is simply that they give you a much better return than any other strategy, or at least any other strategy with a similar level of safety and consistency. With covered calls, you can easily generate 3 to 5% returns per month, which adds up very quickly over time when you take compounding into account. Even on the more conservative side, assuming 3% returns per month, that comes out to about 43% over the course of a year. And at that rate, you double your money just about every 2 years. And at a 5% monthly return, you'd be gaining about 80% per year, so you'd double your money about every 15 months. If you know of any other strategy you can use to safely and consistently double your money about every year or two, I'd like to know about it. Now, another huge advantage to covered call writing, and the fourth reason that you need to be using this strategy, is that you don't really need to worry about what the market is doing because you can make money regardless of whether the market is rising, falling, or staying the same. So the market conditions might determine the strike prices and expiration dates of the calls you decide to sell, but overall, the strategy remains largely the same. As long as you're selling covered calls on upward trending stocks with strong revenue that you believe in for the long term, you don't need to worry if one of your stocks dips in price a bit because you can feel confident that it'll recover soon enough, as long as nothing has changed with the fundamentals of the company. Now, there are other strategies that I use to supplement my covered calls in a bear market, which I'll definitely talk about soon, but even when I'm using those other strategies, I'm still always writing covered calls as well. Now, the fifth and final reason that you need to be writing covered calls is that it takes up very little time. Aside from the time you spend researching stocks, which really doesn't take too long either, selling covered calls can take as little as about 15 minutes per week, which gets back to the whole reason why you're probably investing in the first place, so you can just sit back and let your money work for you as you spend your time focusing focusing on the things that you truly care about. Because when you're using more active trading strategies like day trading, where you have to sit at a computer watching the market all day, you essentially just created another job that you have to spend time on. Covered call writing is a much more passive strategy, and most of the time your returns will actually be a lot better with covered calls, and definitely a lot more consistent than most other strategies. So hopefully this video helped you to see why covered call writing can be such a powerful strategy for generating income. And if you want a refresher on how to get started in covered call writing, be sure to click my covered call basics playlist in the bottom right corner of the screen. So there you go. I'll talk to you all in the next one.